Joining me now is Chief Gord Cobey, who has been with Guelph Police Service now for just over 2 years, recently celebrating that anniversary. Congratulations. And how do you feel it's gone? Have you accomplished what you wanted to in the first 2 years?
Well, first, thanks for having us. I think this is the first time we've been together, so we really appreciate that. It's been a great 2 years. I think that despite having lived here for 20 years now, the last 2 years in this role has really kind of opened my eyes to what a great community we actually live in. Like as far as our community leaders, our volunteers, our members, it's been an exciting time. Obviously, a busy time. The world has changed in the last couple of years, certainly in the last year, but overall, it's going really well.
You came from the RCMP as opposed to your predecessor, who sort of rose through the Guelph Police Service ranks. What has that status as an outsider? What insights has that given you into Guelph Police?
Well, I think coming from another organization, it's a different perspective. But I have to say, I've learned as much as I've brought to the organization. I think that it's difficult to compare a national police service with a municipal one. But the last 2 years, I've told many people, I've learned more than I could have ever imagined. And this is easily the best job I've ever had. Like, I feel privileged every day to get to come to work in this job.
Anything you've learned that's surprised you?
I don't know about surprise, but gained an enormous appreciation for the interconnectedness with community. Growing up in a much larger organization, it's not the same. It wasn't for me in the roles that I had for many years. They weren't always very public roles. So a great appreciation for like our community leaders and volunteers, and the list is endless. But I think of people like Helen and Rochelle, and so many community leaders and the volunteers. That's been one of the newest things for me, is getting to engage at a community level that my other jobs just didn't give me that opportunity in the same way.
I'm sure when you took this job, you didn't expect a global pandemic. That's been a big challenge for everyone. How do you find that balance between keeping officers safe and still getting out and doing the job of policing?
So, Neil, I hope you learn as we chat more and more in the future months to come. I think in terms of opportunities, not challenges. So, but as far as the pandemic, I think as of today, we've responded to just under 78,000 calls for service since March 12th last year. So if you can imagine, that's a lot of calls for service that our folks have gone to. And the resiliency that they've shown has been extraordinary. But in many ways, the pandemic has, I think it's brought the community together in a lot of ways. Like the city leadership, like we meet multiple times a week to talk about how we can work together. We've redefined what an essential worker is. Like 2 years ago, we might have thought, say, emergency response personnel, but now we realize, like, people in our grocery stores, our pharmacies, so many people are essential to how a community operates. So yes, there's been challenges. Yes, every day around here, it's about business continuity and how can we safely respond to calls for service, keeping the public safe and our members safe. But we've evolved in so many ways that like 2 years ago, you and I might not have even thought we could do this conversation this way. And now we do it with a thank you.
Absolutely. The other big event that happened in your second year was the Black Lives Matter protests and this summer of, really conversation around civil rights, police reform. Did that change anything in terms of the Guelph Police Service and what you do?
Well, I think that changed in some respects. That's been a catalyst for change for all of us, right? Like, I think what we have clearly recognized is that bias, prejudice, racism, it exists. It exists in organizations, in communities, in our country. And so I think it's really been a catalyst for us to have difficult and introspective conversations to realize we have to work to eliminate any form of racism. And it's certainly, like, we've been implementing a number of initiatives to really to demonstrate our commitment. So that's an example of that has been an opportunity that I think has made our community and our country better by having these conversations that, again, we weren't having a year ago today.
Of those initiatives, what excites you the most?
Sometimes people think of issues as policing issues, and I think very often those issues are more holistically thought of as safety or wellness issues. So, like for example, our diversity committee has been doing a lot of work to look at how we kind of our practices and different initiatives. And what we realized is that by no fault or design, certain aspects of our community had been tending to get more attention than other areas of our community. And it was just certain initiatives that we had been doing. And I think we're working really hard to realize our organization and all organizations have to serve and represent our entire communities. So it's been a thoughtful, introspective look at how we can purposefully do better serving our entire community.
And one other thing that has been a bit of a controversy has been around transparency, where there's been some criticism. The arrest of Marwan Taber stands out, but some community members feel that the more information from the police, of course, you have to balance out privacy. How do you balance that, the public's right to know against the need for privacy for especially victims?
So that was a change that I think that happened relatively early when I got here. And I think so right over top of me, beside that banner, that's the Charter of Rights. And I think that we have to be mindful in everything we do. It is people are presumed innocent in relation to court proceedings, etc. So the Police Services Act in Ontario gives police the authority to release information, and when it's required, so when there's a public safety interest, when it's needed to protect the public, to conduct investigation, we have and will continue to release private information. But I think we have to balance that by the police should never undertake a name and shame exercise or policy. And I think that I personally have yet to see any data that shows that naming and shaming reduces recidivism. And I'm also mindful in the social media world we live in. For example, like if I'm someone in our community who is named and shamed in the media, what's the long-term ramification of that, especially before a court process is completed? And how does that impact, say, my children or other people? So we will, when it serves the safety of the community, absolutely release information, but I don't think it's appropriate, and I don't think it is in the spirit of the law or the charter that is behind me to just name and shame just for the sake of doing it.
And the Ottawa Police recently banned certain no-knock dynamic entries. So I just want to ask you, what is the status of those in terms of the Guelph Police?
And right now, as far as when we conduct search warrants or enforcement actions, they're done with the authorization of the court. Obviously, it's difficult for me to give a broad-based answer to that, rather than looking at kind of the individual circumstances of each situation. So I know that when we conduct enforcement actions, it's based on risk assessments and things like that, but it'd be difficult for me to kind of go down that without kind of more specifics as far as individual situations.
But you still might turn to dynamic entries if those are warranted.
I think in every situation, we have to be mindful of what is the risk and how can enforcement action be done in a safe way for the safety of both the police, the public, and the people impacted in the investigation.
Well, it's certainly been a busy 2 years. What are your priorities for the future of policing in Guelph?
First and foremost, we always strive to make our community proud, make our members proud, and make sure that we're working to make sure that our diverse, thriving, growing community is as safe and healthy as possible. I know our strategic business plan has several priorities, including like community wellness, downtown, traffic safety. And I think we'll continue kind of fulfilling those priorities, working to fulfill those priorities. Like, for example, 2 years ago, we didn't have our downtown resource officers. Now we have our recruits are required to spend a minimum number of shifts downtown to learn the downtown. We like during the 2019 budget process, we committed and were approved to do our body camera project. So all with a view towards transparency, with a view towards evolving both for the community and the service. So we'll continue to what serves our community, and for example, our transition to the commitment to transition all of our marked vehicles to a hybrid fleet. Those are the kind of things that we'll continue to look to expand on.
Some big projects indeed, and very cool things coming, I'm sure, from the Guelph Police Service. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks very much for having us.